Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We will continue with the topic of mechanical properties of materials. In this session, we will discuss stress strain diagram for the ductile materials. We have already discussed the ductile and brittle materials. Ductile materials are those which gives large degree of deformation under action of the tensile force prior to the fracture or failure. So stress strain diagram is constructed using tensile testing of the material. Tensile specimen is tested using universal tensile machine. This is the specimen of the tensile test. In this is the gauge length, and this larger portion of the specimen is used for the gripping. So this is gripping portion from where the jaws of the UTMs hold the specimen. On application of the load, the specimen elongates and the load is always applied gradually. Now on elongation, the strain is made by using this expression: epsilon is equal to del over L. Now this del is the deformation, and now for this case the application of the tensile force, this is the change in length, and this L is the initial length of the gauge section. And likewise the stress is made by using this expression P upon A. This is the load, the application of tensile force, and this is the cross sectional area of the specimen. Now these values are plotted using this plot. Now horizontal axis is showing the strain, on vertical axis we plot the stress, and likewise once we plot these values we get this kind of initial curve of the material. We already know that the strength is the maximum value of the stress which a material can withstand. Every material has its own value of strength and it is fixed for that very particular material, and we can define as the ultimate tensile strength for any of the material, and this is symbolized with sigma u. This is the maximum value of the stress which a material can withstand. Let's assume for a given case the stress value is now greater than this ultimate tensile stress. Now in this situation the material will fail due to the necking. Necking is just nothing but the reduction in cross-sectional area of the gauge length. Now this portion is showing the necking, that is the reduction in cross-sectional area of the gauge section. To proceed further, it is important to know the difference between engineering stress and the true stress. Now engineering stress, let's say this is denoted by sigma E. This is nothing but the calculation of the stress is used by using the initial cross section of the specimen, that is P upon A. Now in this case, for engineering stress, this is calculated using the initial cross section area of the specimen. Now for the case of true stress, this is denoted by sigma T. Again the expression is same, that is P upon A. Now in this case, this cross section area that would be used, that is the reduced cross sectional area of the specimen. Now with the reduced, the true stress is going to be more from the engineering stress. Now to plot stress strain diagram for the case of ductile material, let's assume we use the mild steel material for the stress strain diagram. Mild steel is a ductile material and it is also known as the structure material. Let's say we draw the horizontal line to show the strain and vertical line that is for the stress. Once the load is not applied, we have the zero stress and zero strain value. And let's say on the application of load, we observe that till point A, the material follows the Hooke's law. Now from 0 till A, material follows the Hooke's law, means that stress is equal to E epsilon. This E is the modulus of elasticity, that is constant, and that is the slope of the inclined line. So stress is directly proportional to the strain. So this point A is termed as the limit of proportionality. Upon further application of the force, now the curve is not following the Hooke's law, but still the material behaves in an elastic manner, means on removal of the applied load, the material will follow its backward path. So till point B, the material follows the elastic behavior. So this point is B point is labeled as the elastic limit. Now till point B, the material, once the load is removed, the material will restore its original shape and size. Now on further application of the force, let's say till point C, now on removal of the force, the material is not following its path. Now this point is termed as, labeled as the upper yield point. Point from where the yielding starts. And we know that the stresses are internal resistive forces of the body, material or molecules. Let's say we see using this diagram. Let's say we have a specimen and that is loaded in tension. The tensile force is applied. Now to know the stresses produced within the material, we use the section method and cut the specimen. Now we see this is the tensile force or the applied load, and as a result this is the force which is produced within the material. Now before yielding, this F is equal to P. That is why we use that sigma is equal to P upon A, because this P is equal to A. But after yielding, we see that the relationship is not that very, and the F, the force, the resistive force of the material, that is reduced from the applied load, and that is because of the reason that the molecules maintained, because of the closeness of the molecules within the lattice, but these are not now close, and because of the distance or intermolecular distance increase, the F force, the force F, that is now decreasing from P. Now using same expression, sigma is equal to F upon A. Since F is decreasing, the stress is also decreasing. Now that is actually the yielding phenomena, and that is why from here point C the yielding starts, and this point is termed as the upper yield point. Now if by further application of the load, let's say till point D, this yielding continued, the strain is increasing but stress is decreasing. Now this point is known as the lower yield point. Low yield point of the material. From this point the yielding is eliminated. Now from now onward, on further application of the force till point E, the stress starts increasing, and this is because of the phenomena known as the stain hardening. Again, this is caused by the dislocation of the molecules, means the molecules are dislocated within the structure previously where the resistive force was decreased because of the increase of the distance between the molecules. Now at locations the molecules are closed packed or closed, and but the lattice is not in a perfect shape, and because of this again closeness there is an increase in value of the stress, and this point E is known as the ultimate tensile stress. UTS, ultimate tensile stress. Now on further application of the load, now the necking is produced in the material, and because of the reduced cross section area the decreasing stress is decreasing, but still the strain value that is increasing, and at point E, at point F, the material breaks and fracture take place. Now this point is termed as F is the fracture or failure, where the material breaks into two. Let's we label these points. Now here A is as the limit of proportionality, this is limit of proportionality, A point. B is known as the elastic limit, and C is the upper yield point, D is the lower yield point, E is the ultimate tensile stress, and F is the fracture or failure point. Now in this diagram 2 points are very important. This point from where the yielding starts, there is a permanent deformation. The material cannot restore to its original shape and size, and F is the fracture or the ultimate the failure of the material. Now these 2 points are very important, and at point C, because the yielding starts and the permanent deformation occurs, and at F the material breaks. And for ductile materials the stress value at low yield point is taken as the strength criteria. Now we have two yield points here, C and the D. Now C is the upper yield point and D is the lower yield point. Now the designers take this lower yield point as the strength criteria for any of the ductile material, because this is the minimum value that a material has to maintain, and this is known as the yield strength of the material. And this is denoted by SYT, yield strength of the material. Now for many materials, the ductile materials, the lower yield point is not so significant. To calculate that, the offset method is used. In offset methods, now in this stress strain diagram we see that there is no significant or point which we can say that this is the lower yield point or the yield point. So for this case the offset method is used for the calculation of the yield strength, where in this offset method we use a parallel line with the OA, let's say this is the A, the limit of proportionality, we draw a parallel line, and this is at distance 2%, 0.2% from the origin, and this value is exactly as 0.02 from the, so this 0.2% is in fact the offset. We can set any value between this 0.1 to 0.5% depending on the situation. Here we use 0.2% is the offset. At this point, now this line where it cuts the stress strain curve, this point is known as the yield point, and this is also known as the proof stress. Now with this we end our discussion here. Allah Hafiz. We will discuss toughness, resilience and stiffness. Now toughness, it is the property of material. It is defined as it is the property of material by virtue of which a material absorbs maximum amount of energy maximum amount of energy before fracture. So this is the property of material which is made under action of energy instead of application of mechanical force. So we don't apply mechanical force to calculate the toughness, rather we apply energy to calculate the toughness. Here energy is basically in the form of kinetic energy, means if the material absorbs more energy before the fracture, so its toughness will be more. Let's say we take two identical plates, one is made up of glass and the other is made up of wood, and if we throw a stone on both the plates with same force and velocity, so means with the same kinetic energy, that is kinetic energy half mv square. So once we throw the stone with the same kinetic energy, we observe that the glass breaks but wood does not break. So this is because of the reason that wood has more toughness than the glass. So means, or in other words, wood can absorb more energy and the glass cannot absorb more energy. So we can say the toughness of glass is less than the toughness of wood. Now let's discuss considering a stress strain diagram, and in this stress strain diagram we take a small element under the curve of the stress strain of any arbitrary material. So the area of the element, let's say the area of element, that is E, we can calculate, that is sigma and d epsilon. Let's say this is the d epsilon and this is the stress. So we can easily calculate the area of this very element, and that is d sigma d epsilon. Further, we can, if we integrate from 0 to the maximum, let's say the maximum strain, that is epsilon dash. So this would be the total area of stress strain diagram. Now if we consider the units, so units of this small elemental area, so this is the units of this Newton per meter square, and the units of epsilon are dimensionless. So finally the units of this elemental area are going to be Newton per meter square. If we see in terms of the energy per unit volume, in terms of energy per unit volume, so the units of energy we know, the joules, that is again Newton meter per unit volume, so meter cube. So again we are having the units of this elemental area Newton per meter square or Pascal. So both the units are same. So the area under stress strain up to any point will represents the energy per unit volume. So the area under stress strain diagram up to any point represents in fact the energy absorbed per unit volume of the material. And if we calculate the area of stress strain diagram till the fracture point, till here, this is the fracture point, so that will be the energy absorbed per unit volume up to the fracture. So area under stress strain diagram up to the fracture would be area under stress strain diagram up to the fracture point is known as modulus of toughness. This is the fracture point. So area under the curve up to the fracture is toughness of modulus of toughness of that very material, and we know that modulus of toughness is the mere of itself the mere of toughness, means more area under the curve, the more modulus of toughness of the material. Now, talking about resilience and proof resilience, these properties are also made under application of energy like toughness instead of using the mechanical force. But before that, it is important to understand the strain energy. So, strain energy that is represented by capital U. So, it is the energy stored in a body due to the deformation. If we compress a spring, for example, if we compress a spring, and due to this compression the spring will hold some energy, and spring can push any object by again using this energy. Let us now discuss how strain energy comes in any of the object or body. Once any material is deformed, means to cause the deformation some force is applied. So we can say the force has done some work on the material in the form of deformation of the object. Same work is in fact stored in the form of energy in that very body. That energy is known as the strain energy. Thus, strain energy is in fact strain energy in fact the work done for deformation. Here it is important to know that how load is applied. Now means the type of or the category of load. So if we discuss the type of loads, there are basically main three types of load. One is that is gradual load. In gradual load, the magnitude of the load is gradually increased from 0 to the maximum. Then we have a sudden load. If the intended load is applied at once on the component, this will be known as the sudden load. And then we have the impact load. Means once the load is dropped from some height on the component, and as a result the component and load will collide and a shock will produce. So this type of load is known as the impact load. So there are three main types of loads. Mainly the gradual load is used in our studies, like in universal tensile machine, the UTM, the load value is gradually increased. Now we will study the strain energy under application of gradual load. Let's draw load versus deformation diagram. In this case, if the material under consideration follows the Hooke's law, then the behavior of load deformation will be linear, as we are seeing in this deformation load diagram. This is a linear portion, and when we increase the load gradually, accordingly the deformation is also increased, and a point will come where the linear behavior will stop. Let's say this point is A. Till that there is a linear behavior between load and deformation, and this is known as the elastic limit. Means the material will give elastic behavior till point A, and after that there will be plastic behavior. And if we calculate the area under the curve, let's say if we calculate area under the curve of this triangle, so that is going to be half load into deformation. So now coming back to the resilience and proof resilience. So we define resilience as the amount of energy is the amount of energy or strain energy within the elastic limit till any point till elastic limit. Now strain energy or the energy absorbed by component within the elastic energy, that would be the resilience. Now what is the proof resilience? Now this is defined as is the amount of energy or strain energy absorbed up to the elastic limit. Now the proof resilience is the area under the load versus deformation diagram up to the elastic limit till this point. Now this total is the proof resilience. whereas the resilience is the amount of energy within the elastic limit. Let's say we take this point, so this area is going to be the resilience. So the difference between the resilience and the proof resilience is this, that the amount of energy absorbed within the elastic limit at any point, that would be known as the resilience, and the amount of energy or the strain energy absorbed up to the elastic limit here, this is going to be the proof resilience. Now if we consider this using stress strain diagram, the strain energy per unit volume under the case of considering stress strain diagram, the strain energy per unit volume is known as the density. And if we calculate the strain energy up to the elastic limit, or we calculate the area under the stress strain diagram, it represents the modulus of resilience. So generally we can say the strain energy per unit area is known as the energy density. And if we calculate the strain energy up to the elastic limit, let's say this point shows the elastic limit, so this is the modulus of resilience. And this we can calculate as the area under stress strain diagram stress strain diagram up to the elastic limit. That is the modulus of resilience. And area under the stress strain diagram up to the fracture point, up till here, so this total area is the modulus of toughness. Now resilience or proof resilience is very important for the property for the springs. Further important points are the toughness, resilience, and proof. Resilience deals with the energies of the materials instead of mechanical force. Now, under the amount of energy within the elastic limit, as we discuss here, that is the resilience, and the amount of energy absorbed up to the elastic limit is the proof resilience. Further, the area under we can describe here the area under load deformation diagram represents the energy or strain energy, and area under stress strain diagram represents the energy density. And area under load deformation diagram up to the fracture point is known as toughness, and area under stress strain diagram up to the fracture point is known as the modulus of toughness. Now, let's discuss the stiffness. It is the property of material. Stiffness is the property of material by virtue of which a material resists deformation. means more stiff material would be more difficult to deform, or we can say that if the material is easily deformed means the material is less stiff. So the stiffness can also be defined as the load per unit deformation. The load per unit deformation. Let's say if we require 1 millimeter, if we need 1 millimeter of deformation, and we have components of two different materials, let's say of same dimensions. Let's say we have component of material A and we have component of same dimensions of material B, and to achieve 1 millimeter of deformation of component A we require 100 kilonewton of load, and to achieve deformation of 1 millimeter for the case of component B we require 200 kilonewton of load. So we can say the component B is require more load for the deformation up to 1 millimeter. So it means the stiffness of component B is greater than stiffness of component A. It indicates that the component B will more resist to the deformation. Now with this we end our discussion here. Allah Hafiz.